Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, I wanted to talk to everybody about JP Morgan Chase and basically their continued branch expansion, which I find very interesting, considering kind of what the industry trend is to actually get rid of bank branches, but they are really going all in on continuing to develop their branch bank footprint, which I find very interesting. So let's bring on add on here. So this is going to be one of the articles we're going to look at today here. So America's biggest bank is growing the old-fashioned way through branches. Now, before we get into this, I want to talk about today's sponsor. So today's sponsor is Willow Street Pictures. If you are looking for a fantastic place to go and do a photo shoot, Willow Street Pictures is it. They have custom state-of-the-art photography studios. They have state-of-the-art photography equipment, and they will provide you with an experience that is bar none. If you want a great place that you'll feel like a movie star when you're walking in the door, this is the place for you. They specialize in pet photography. They do family portraits, and they will also get into all types of corporate work, like whether you need photography for your website, you need photography for a marketing campaign, they have the ability to handle it all. So I would highly recommend them to everybody. Go check them out when you have a chance. You can find them at their website is www.willowstreetpictures.com, and give them a check. The crew over there is fantastic and easy to work with. You won't be disappointed. So give them a check. Give them check them out when you have a chance. Okay. So let's go into, I just want to show this. So this is from the Fed, the St. Louis Fed Economic Database. And this basically shows the number of bank branches in the United States. And you can see here, going back to 2004, you saw this kind of huge run up in bank branches over basically a 5-year period where bank branches shot up to about 81,000. And then ultimately a few years later, around 2012, kind of hitting their peak at about almost 82,000, and then have basically steadily come down since then, coming all the way down to about 70,265 as of 2022. And I think that number might actually even be a little lower. I think it might have actually even come down to maybe just under 70,000 at this point. But I wanted to show this to you because I just wanted you to point out, I wanted you to see that the trend in the industry is for bank branches to basically be decreasing. And the reason why a lot of banks are closing is because of technology. Websites have gotten a lot better. Mobile apps have gotten a lot better. Your kind of automated phone systems have gotten better. AI and chatbots are starting to improve the quality of a lot of things. For the bigger banks, in certain locations, they've rolled out more sophisticated ATMs, which have the ability to take deposits and do video conferencing and things of that nature. So the technology has improved, but there's also been a kind of a changing preference of the younger generation. Gen Z, the younger millennials, like they don't really want to go into the bank branch as much as like the boomers and the Gen X's and maybe even the older millennials have historically done. So you have this change in technology, you have change in consumer preferences, which means that in certain areas the foot traffic has decreased, meaning a lot of the bigger banks have said, well, hey, say we're looking at a particular area and we've got 50 branches in that area. They're looking at it and they're going, well, based on the technology, everything else, I mean, we can really reduce those 50 branches to, we could cut them all the way down to 25, still serve the same area, the same customer base, and not really skip a beat. And that's how they're looking at it. And that's kind of the trend of what's happening here. Now, interestingly, getting back to this article here, so JP Morgan Chase, on the other hand, they are committing to building bank branches. They're kind of going all in. And then the article starts out here by saying, hundreds of branches at rival banks are being closed each year, and customers are shunning the teller and choosing the mobile app. But at the nation's biggest bank, old-fashioned bricks and mortar locations are part of the secret sauce. JP Morgan plans to build 500 new branches in the next 3 years, it said, confirming an earlier report in the Wall Street Journal. The multi-billion-dollar investment will fill out cities it has recently entered, such as Boston, Philadelphia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. But for context, only 17 banks in the US have more than 500 branches today, and JP Morgan has close to 5,000. And we can see here from the chart a couple of the cities that they've gone into: Pittsburgh, Boston, Washington, D.C. Now it goes on to say that basically that JP Morgan's target here is they want to gather 20% of the entire country's deposits, up from 12% today. Now, interesting side note on that, there is a law that basically said that no single bank could have more than 10% of the entire deposits in the country. Some of the bigger banks, obviously JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, they were really pushing up against that after the financial crisis because of some of the banks they had to merge with. Some of the banks that they'd failed, that they had taken on, really blew up the amount of deposits that they had. So I'm going to have to do a little research on that and find out about that, because I assumed that law was still in effect and that you couldn't have one branch. I certainly think that's an issue. I think that having one bank have anywhere from 10 to 20% of all the deposits in the country, that to me is that's an issue. You've got too big to fail, and then you literally have we can't live without them. We're gonna go from too big to fail to we can't live without them. Um, so, but this article goes on to basically say, like, hey, branches really, like, what are they doing here? And then you can see from some of the chart here, you can see the number of bank branches. JP Morgan's going up, Bank of America is going down. Most customers still use a branch at some point during the year. Even college-age kids and tech-obsessed Gen Z choose their bank based partly on whether they can get to a branch easily. The bank says small business clients are core users and still bring wads of cash to branches each week. It's true. I mean, it's all true. And then it gets down into and then here again we can see total deposits here. JP Morgan, then Bank of America. You could see that, obviously starting after the financial crisis, like I said, their deposits just dramatically grew, kind of took a little bit of a dip here, but then, off to the races we go. Trying to get the hometown feel, local community banks, and then that's kind of gets down to the end. So it is, I think it is very interesting that that JP Morgan is really going kind of all in on adding to their branch count and really building out these different cities. There's a different scenario called basically a banking desert. If you've ever heard of the idea of a food desert, where there's no food stores in a particular area and the people that are there have to drive a long way to get to a food store. It's kind of the same thing with banking. States like North Carolina, Montana come to mind, where the town might have only had one branch, and then the bank closes, JP Morgan or Bank of America closes, and then now that person has to drive 10, 20, 30 miles to get to the nearest bank branch to do a simple transaction. And obviously that's an issue in certain states, and something that there's a lot of discussion around. And I'll do an episode on that eventually at some point. Someday I'll get to that. But again, I just find it very interesting that JP Morgan is trying to go all in on that. They're really trying to increase their overall deposit base up to, 20% of the total deposits in this country. I think that's something that needs to be, looked at a little bit closer. Is that really it might be a good thing for JP Morgan Chase, but is that really a good thing for the country as a whole? So just, again, something to look at, something to think about. I probably will do a little bit deeper dive at some point on, like, the total number of bank branches and kind of what's going on there, because there's a lot in that brew. I mean, I know I kind of presented a little bit of an oversimplified picture here, but there is a lot more kind of going on in this in terms of, demographic changes, changes in different preferences, what goes on. One of the things I find fascinating is that, the bank branch, we've been hearing about the death knell of the bank branch for probably 30 years now, and yet the bank branch still remains. And there's still a lot of bank branches in the United States. So the bank branch is not going away anytime soon, just contrary to popular belief. And like I said, and I'll get into more of the reasons why that is. and we'll look into that more down the road. But I hope you liked this episode today. If you do, please make sure to give a like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share. That always helps the channel. Make sure to go to thebankernextdoor.com and make sure to check us out on YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast platforms. And I'll be back to talk to everybody again real soon. Thanks a lot.